I mean, I know I should say for God and country and apple pie and mom and all that. No, but I was working a job at like a cookie store in the mall, and it just didn't. There were no jobs. I mean, you have to have degrees and everything there, and I mean, trying to get a legitimate career with benefits was really daunting at the time, and so I didn't want to work at a cookie store forever. So the recruiters got a hold of me and convinced me. And you know, when you're young, you don't really think things through. You're just like, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. What are you doing tomorrow? I'm going to join the Army. Okay. You know, and you just go. It worked out. You come home from that, and all your friends are still working dead-end jobs in cookie stores in the mall. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but there's a definite divide when you get back. You know, so I was getting up at 06 and, running around the neighborhood and keeping my room clean, because I still at my parents' house for the few months before I shipped back out, and making sure things were right dress. And, when somebody gave me a job, I got it done immediately and to the best of my abilities. And my friends were still like, oh, no, we don't need to do that. They were less reliable, less responsible, and you can't go back. So I just kept going forward. I was a 91 Bravo, which is the same as what Zane was. We were combat medics. One mobilization and 2 overseas deployments. Okay. But when I go one place, I usually travel in the area, so I get to see a lot of different places. So when I was at Fort Lewis, they sent me I was stationed at Saudi Arabia, but then they sent me to Kuwait and Bahrain. Mm-hmm. So, that's like where your unit is in Saudi Arabia, but then they might task you out to the Navy or the Air Force, or Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait at that time, so they sent us out in the middle of the desert in an ambulance. I was still active duty until 97, okay. And I got out so that I could go to PA school. And I re-enlisted in 2011, and it was just kind of let's just see what happened. And the recruiter called up and said, hey, guess what? And I said, oh, it worked. And he said, welcome back. So then I was back in as an officer that time. I was never in the Air Guard. And he's like, you were in the Air Guard. Here's your discharge paperwork from the Air Guard in like Washington State. I was like, I didn't even live in one. What are you talking about? So apparently what they did back in the day before they were computers, if they needed names so that they could get more funding for their unit, they made you what's called a paper soldier, and you just existed on the roster. So because I had just gotten out at that time, I'd gotten out of Washington, apparently my name got put on a roster and maintained on the roster for like 8 years until they became computerized. And then they said, oh no, she hasn't been here for 8 years. So they busted me down to private and put a bar to re-enlist on me. And I'd never known anything. I mean, I never knew it, so this all existed. So the recruiter said, well, we can do one of 2 things. This is preventing you from coming in. You can either petition the records department of the United States government to have it changed and submit factual documentation. It might take several years to get that done. Or you can write a letter to the government and apologize for being AWOL for however many years. And so I said, I apologize for being, and I submitted it. So it shows that I was in the reserve for that years, but I never showed up because I wasn't even living in the state. So according to my records, I was in the Air Guard, I believe, of Washington, but I was never there. 2019, and I was just supposed to go to Djibouti, Africa, but I ended up going to lots of different places, and because the pandemic hit, I got extended. I was only supposed to go for 90 days, so it was just going to be a little hop, skip, and a jump. But when I got there, the guy that was in charge of my deployment said, who told you 90 days? And I was like, you, sir. And he's like, psh, you got the emails to prove it? I said, I do, sir. He said, psh, you're here at least 180 days. Your orders are good for 270. I was like, son of a bitch. And then the pandemic hit, so they shut down all the airports. So I was there until, I think it ended up being, I can't remember, September 2019, and I hit US soil again the end of July of 2020. Every time I'm deployed, I do the same thing. I'm a PA, that's just how it works. So I had bought all the gear and everything because I figured I was just gonna be in an aid station. That's where it's gonna work. And I got there and they said, no, send that stuff back. You are gonna be civil affairs. So you're gonna be working with the embassies in these different countries, and you're gonna go to the different countries and work with local villages and law enforcement and border patrol, and mostly work on infectious disease and public health like Ebola and malaria, tuberculosis. They sent me to like Kenya. I was with the border patrol there, and it was really cool. I learned so much stuff when I was there. Ebola was Rwanda. Ebola was our biggest thing, but Rwanda, they got it down, man. They know how to take care of Ebola. We would go and check on the stations in between the different countries, and work with the United Nations to make sure that they were screening so that things wouldn't spread. And of course, it was just an easy pivot when COVID hit to, instead of being focused on Ebola, to be focused on COVID. Immediately thereafter, everybody just went on a massive lockdown. Everybody just, like Rwanda, they wouldn't let them come out of their houses. Uganda, they had lockdowns and curfews and things like that. So they basically just sent us back to Djibouti, and we just sat and waited until we could come